Hey everybody, this is Munson Steed and welcome to Star Studio. I have and one of my favorite producers, directors, Hollywood, what I'm gonna call moguldoms in the making for sure, sister with superpower. She is definitely creating content, really love. If you haven't seen it, you need to study it. We're gonna kind of dissect the role of producer, talk about how funding sources, put things on, and then can kind of cramp creativity so that you easing the idea out, but also creating this battery of love and loving films. Welcome to Star Studio, my dearest, Miss Jones. What's happening?
Thank you for having me on here again. I'm very excited to talk about Really Love.
Well, really, as an HU graduate, did you ever, from freshman year to being able to walk. And one thing I want to say that HU is a university. So that means you can get doctorate, law degree, the whole works there. But did you ever in the moments that you were dream this moment that you are now living and seeing this body of work?
Yep, I did. Like, I think probably because Howard is such an amazing place where it's one of the only times in my life I feel like where the dreams that we had were pushed, and they also showed us examples of people who were doing what we wanted to do all the time. So it made everything feel so much more accessible. I got to work out things like, in the real world we have to be twice as good. At Howard, that wasn't the case. Like, we could fail and get back up, we could experiment, we could be ourselves. Like, it just I could imagine myself doing all those things. I had no idea how hard it would be, but definitely at Howard is where I started to dream and really see myself in this role.
So when you sit back and you think about it and you saw the script, you knew you were literally negotiating with a whole nother Hollywood mammoth being birthed over there in macro in Charles King.
Mhm.
Um, what were you imagining as producer, and what should people understand, if you would, kind of delineate the role of a producer as it relates to a film in general?
Oh yeah, this is a very important question. So I'm glad you asked me, because there are a lot of people who get the credit of producer and have done, absolutely nothing. Like, and it's a very interesting title, because you can be a friend of someone, you can give some money, you can be a executive and get a producer credit. But in the role that I play, for all of the Black films that I've made, I'm a creative producer. And what that means is, oftentimes I find the script. Sometimes there's no director attached, sometimes there is. And then I go from the very beginning with it, looking for the financing, helping with the casting, figuring out where we might shoot it for the best kind of deal, all the way through post, and then, getting it out to the world. So my job is one that is like a mother. Not all producers are mothers. They all, I won't say to do absolutely nothing, but there's like a span of responsibilities that a producer can get the title for doing. But one like me is there from the beginning until everybody's gone, basically, till the lights are out. I close down the club, basically. So yeah, so it's a journey, because somebody like Macro, they fully financed it, so you have to interface with a macro who has to get their money back. Like, this is a business after all. In support of all these Black artists, they still have to make their money. So we have to figure out how to preserve the vision of the director and the writer, and still be able to accomplish it within finite resources. So I guess that's like the biggest challenge that I face every movie, and just trying to be creative around prioritizing what's the most important thing about this story, and going down from there. What can we lose? What can we not lose? How can we preserve this? That type of thing.
And when you think of yourself in a producer, you decided, if you are, or it felt like you're at least playing like you're in DC. So now you wanted to have a feel that felt
Mhm.
rich and like DC. For you, what was that like, allowing that world that you knew to come forward and throw in iconic Ben's Chili Bowl? Why? Why was it important for you as a producer to mention Marion Barry, obviously? And then you went as far as even culturally saying to somebody, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I honestly, Howard, I guess DC via Howard, um, played a major role in my development. I feel like I became the woman that I am on that campus, and aspired to be the woman that I am now on that campus. And so I think for me, I always wanted to give back to DC. I just, I grew up in Richmond, which is also, pretty black city, but it's a different vibe than DC, and like there was a pride that people had there. There was a love for one another that's not always present in other places. And just a love for our culture that I fell in love with. And I mean, DC is one of my most favorite cities in the entire world. And I think it's so important for us as everything is gentrifying and cities are changing, to preserve how we know it as much as we can. Like, who knows how long Ben's Chili Bowl will be there? I mean, there are places that are in the film right now that don't exist anymore in DC, and so I think for us, or for me at least, I was really drawn to the project because it was in a city that I loved and attribute so much of my like development and growth to. So it was important to talk about the things, it was important to talk about Marion Barry. It was important to have go-go in it. It was important to see a bunch of black people just walking around, like all of that stuff was so important because who knows how long that'll be the case there or any other metropolitan city. But like while it is, we wanted to, and DC is so different than even, when I came up there. But like it was just so important because that is such a beautiful, like, I mean, there's a whole music that came out of DC that no other place could have dreamed of creating. And I just feel like it's such a magical place where if you're gonna talk about black love, I mean, what better place than DC?
I could think of a couple, but anyhow, that's just basically we're based in Atlanta. I think the truth about that village, that iconic body of work, and for people who are watching and thinking about it, because I don't want to lose it, that we're talking to this phenomenal producer in this case of Star Studio. So if you would teach them now, here you have huge artists. You got a guy who's on a winning series, who's a lead.
Hmm.
Then you come in with an OG who isn't that old, so it's not like he's Forrest Whitaker,
Hmm.
and you really have him sharing, which I thought the brother bonded in there was held so much true. But you had to negotiate Blair Underwood. You literally look at Michael Ealy and come and negotiate with them. Um, you
Yeah.
know they're stars in clearly life for us, and powerful delivery of every line. But as a producer, what did you have to measure between who's going to get the call, who will agree to the budget,
Yeah.
and still feel respected, who's going to get a certain type of credit? Can you share with the audience kind of like all of the juggling of looking at somebody who's older than you, clearly Blair is,
Hmm.
and saying,
Michael Ealy.
I wasn't trying to. We know Michael is as well, and them seeing their young daughter, sister, aunt, cousin across from them, and I'm sure they're both proud because they're both G's.
Yeah.
But literally, what was it like the negotiation, and what was it like to sell and the invitation to kind of like, you need to be, we're going to be transparent about what this deal is.
So I think all of the producers pitched in when it came to that. Obviously, I think for Kofi, it was an opportunity for him to shine outside of television, to have a leading role. So I think for him, he looked at it as a huge kind of get the opportunity to show his skills and to do something different. Um, so that one was pretty, and when we put, because Macro was behind it, when we put the script out, everybody wanted a piece. I mean, it was, the leading role was not a problem. But in terms of like Michael Ealy and Blair Underwood, to your point, they're leading men, like they are leading men themselves. So it was favors, it was friendship, it was relationship, because there was no budget that could have paid them what they deserve, from our standpoint. So we really had to sell them on the passion that we had and what we thought that this would do for our culture, what kind of conversations that we thought it would evoke, and how we thought they would be the perfect people to be a part of it. So everyone, it was, Uzo. I mean, there across the board, there were so many people who are part of it, but I think there haven't been tons of love stories, Black love stories. And so people are just really wanting to see that and want to be a part of it. But yeah, it was relationships. Like I know Blair Underwood. He's from Virginia. He's from up the street. So I had to call and be like, hey, all right, do you happen to be at home? Are you in Virginia? Like, can you drop up here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, can you help us out? So I think, and he was so gracious, to be able to do that and to say yes. And the same thing with Michael Ealy. That was a Charles call. They're really close, and he kind of did the same thing. So the producers just had to kind of flex their relationship and really ask for favors, really.
Well, no, I really wanted to come to that because that wasn't, I gave you producer love when I saw it, because it's what being at HBCU. If you ain't got the right shirt, let me gift this to you because I'm in a position, my family's gonna do this,
Mhm.
and don't worry about it, bro. I got you.
Yeah,
It,
that was what it
many
was.
meals and love. But the other thing is, I thought it was genius just to have a phenomenal professional cast. I mean, if Kofi didn't do nothing but punch every line and every look, I was like, going ahead, G. Like, I don't know what Marvel's waiting for, but they missing right now. And clearly, your brother was sitting there thinking, just imagine him and Idris together, kind of like going back and forth in some movie at some point. But I love the whole energy of the cast. Like,
Yeah.
and as a producer, how did that feel to you, knowing that you now had created in a budgeting way a successful conversation in art?
Yeah.
What did that feel like to you?
It felt so good because it was so hard. You know what I mean? Like it was not easy. You looking at all these people who are getting paid lots of money in other arenas to do what they're still going to be doing. It's not like they're doing anything less, and they're doing it all for less. And so I felt very proud because part of your job as a producer is your taste. It's like what you choose to put your energy into has to be something that everybody else eventually wants to put their energy into, or you're not gonna have a movie, and there's gonna be a lot of wasted energy. And so I felt very proud to have looked at a script that it's not the script that we ended up shooting, and knowing that it was going to get to where it needed to be in order to attract this talent, and knowing that Felicia and Angel would work together to work out whatever. And a lot of the things and changes that they made were budgetary changes, like things that had to be made because we didn't have, there was a limited amount of money. So I mean, I still feel very proud to have, it was like a Tetris puzzle, trying to get everything to fit in and work and, do it all. And we were able to do it with such little time. We shot the movie in 18 days, so it was a big feat to get it all in there.
But as a producer, you have created a hit. I mean, it's different when you sit back and you say, I had all these great people and the movie sucks. You actually
Yeah.
literally have created something, no matter how critical it is, you can't go away that I didn't give you a moment where any Black man, whether his head is next to his daughter, whether his head is next to his wife, his girlfriend, he wants to see that image that you shot of Kofi next to the lead and say
Mm-hmm.
that he was there. Everybody has wanted to feel that feeling that you evoked, and there were a ton of emotion evoked that didn't even have lines, that literally created that emotion. How did that feel once you saw that you had put all these things together, knowing shooting in the day costs a lot of money, knowing that shooting in location, every location is a check for
Yeah.
anybody who's watching,
Yeah.
every location increases the check, the
Yeah.
cost, the
Yeah.
days, and then you freaking
Very-
went off the edge with doing art. Like, so that's not simple. So now you got to negotiate with an artist. How
Yeah.
does the artist feel now? How did they feel about getting the call and
Yeah.
having to produce these works at literally whatever budget you had.
I mean, we don't own any of those pieces because we couldn't afford to. And even at the time when he was a like a budding artist, right? Now I'm sure he's super happy because everything that he did is like worth like I feel like at least twice as much as what it was when we shot the movie. So I think and we all were like a family, like because we didn't have the luxury to have our own spaces all the time. We're like whatever, we were all kind of cramped up and like I think that's what you felt. So I feel really proud because part of part of my job, and I think it's a job we all know this as producers, but I don't think we think about it as much. And I think about it all the time. Like part of our job is to create a safe space, right? To create a safe space where people can be vulnerable, where art can be created. You know, so it's a lot. It's the money is there and you got to figure out that, but you can't let that overshadow the safe space that you're creating. And you have to protect that space with all costs. And there's all these things that are come in and try to mess that up, right? And you always have to kind of go, okay, no, 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 no. We need to keep this like this. And I feel incredibly, and the more money you have, the easier it is to protect that space. The less money you have, the less easy it is and the harder
So
it is.
let's talk about this space because most people have never been on the sets.
Yeah,
You've done this 6 times, but they've never been on the set.
yeah.
So and I we describe it rolling out, which obviously I say a sister with superpowers creates a safe space with benefits. So
Mhm.
in this context, creating a safe space for actors and directors and writers, what are the benefits that you're working to preserve so that everybody can create this body of work?
So like comfortability, right? Like I think the first thing is you got naked people on the set having sex, you know, like there has to be an energy that everybody who's in that room has to come with. And you have to set that energy as a producer. Like the director definitely has a part in that. You're like mom and dad in that way, but you really got to set it. You know, it comes to because you're talking about your line producer needs to be on board. You know, you got to spend the right money to make sure you got the right people. If you need an intimacy coach or you need this or that, you got to say, no, I need this or I need that to protect this space. I think you know so comfortability is one of the things that is like super important, but I think it's also I feel like creativity is definitely a feminine energy. Like anybody can do it, but you know, it's just one of those things that it's very soft and it's not about productivity all the time. And making a movie is about productivity. There's money. Money is very masculine, and so you have to kind of like keep that balance. So I think the other thing is like balance. Like there has to be, it can't be more of one thing than the other. And both are very important to the process. And there are times when people
It's
within
1 o'clock.
oh, sorry, my computer does that. There are times when people who are part of the project will value one thing over the other. So let's say the people who gave the money value the money. The director, you know, values this kind of creative aspect. As the creative producer, I have to kind of keep the balance there because if it goes one way, you know, then it's not going to go right. If it goes the other way, it's not going to go right. And so I think balance is also something that's a benefit. Like, and that balance, when you strike it, because it's so hard, then you have to maintain it. You have to strike the balance and you have to maintain it over the time. And every day you're doing the dance of how do I keep everything in balance? So I think creating that safe space also requires, and that benefit is having balance. And you see it in the film, like there's an enormous kind of feminine energy that is there, but there's also a very great balance to the masculine that's very important there too. And I think that in all stories and in all life, when you're able to strike that balance, which is very difficult, you get a hit, you know, when you're able to satisfy the needs of both kind of sides, which is super hard. It's not always easy to do, and there's some sets that never strike it. And you know, it's not the producer's fault all the time. Sometimes it's just an unwieldy situation. But being in this situation, I was very proud to kind of keep it all together as much as possible, having been like one of the only people who have made a movie, you know, for real. You know, like a lot of it was first time director. Our DP had made a couple of movies, but like outside of this kind of unionized, you know, very regimented space. And a lot of our people had worked in that kind of more free way before, and we had to make it work within the confines of all the kind of union rules and stuff like that. So it was good. I was very proud, and am very proud.
And you brought how many intimacy coaches did you need for this one?
We actually, this is very interesting. I don't know if Angel has talked about this yet, but I think she should. I think she will. But like what we did was I had met this woman years ago who was a black tantrika. So it's like a tantra lady, right? And I loved her. I went, somebody had told me you should go or whatever. And I went, I was like, this is dope, right? So when Angel was getting ready to do her project, I was like, you need to see this lady because it's a bunch of sex in your movie and like you gotta be in the right spot and then everybody else. And I think so she enjoyed that process. And then she had the actors work with her. So that was the work, like kind of the intimacy work they did. And they did that off a set for I think maybe a month or so prior to us even getting to rehearsals. And then they rehearsed. So they had a lot of time to kind of really find where they were comfortable, create boundaries where they needed to do that. But yeah, it was her name was Kamali Mentor, and she worked wonders. She works wonders all the time.
Well, I really wanted to share that and follow up with what you said because many people don't understand. They think actors, cameras, line guy, but no, there are a lot of coaching, and you can't have intimacy without an intimacy coach. You really can't have people kissing on set without a discussion of where all this will end up and how you get to these points. And then if you're going to expose yourself, is that really you? Are you comfortable exposing yourself?
Yeah.
And in this movie, we're exposing so much Black culture that I don't want to say it's never been done, but it really was a first, I think, for this generation to be able to own. And the love that I had for it was it wasn't the predictable. So it wasn't a gangster movie. It
Mhm.
wasn't a music-based movie. It
Mhm.
wasn't one of those movies where you it wasn't basketball. And not only was it art, but it was more culture than it was art. It was like there was a tapestry. It wasn't a family abuse. He wasn't an abused child. It was awkward. And I think that's so true as you're growing up and you're an artist or an independent. Here it is. My daughter says she wants to be a film director. What is that? I don't know one of those. And why is that? Are you sure you're going to be able to pay your rent like that? And I thought that that was the essence of when I think about how I would sell this to future generations is like your journey's gonna be awkward and you're gonna have to be someplace that you haven't been in this life. But understand, I may not understand it till you get there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it this this project is one that's just real. I think, a lot of times, and this is a shout out to Macro, the money dictates what we get to say about ourselves and our culture a lot of times. Like what that money, whoever owns that and whoever is contributing to that, they a lot of times get to determine what it is we get to share, how it is that we get to share it. Um, and so I think that like that has, with Macro being in support of this movie in this way, we were able to kind of show things that we haven't been able to see because the lens through which the money comes from doesn't see us that way. So they don't get it and they don't find it important. And so I think that's one, and obviously in all times there's going to be a struggle between the money and the creative, but and there were some things that just were a given that we didn't have to discuss or explain. And that was incredibly um I think informative, like having that experience. I haven't had experience working with Black money before. And also so that I could even make this kind of comparison now. And it also was just really beneficial to the movie.
No, I don't know. I'm just kidding. Black media owner, do I know the difference in whether I'm talking to an actor and he's on Chicago Fire and he
Yeah.
helps do video and I know he had been not working? Do I know to just say, hey, do you need an advance? And it's a young brother, and then 10 years from now, he's going to be a superstar, and it's just love. So, yes, do I know? You
Yeah.
know, in the talk, that moved me to the white character. The other thing I would like for us to applaud is there is a Black world and a Black universe and a Black hotel and a Black eatery,
Mhm.
and this is probably the first movement movie, because there is a movement in this movie, no matter what people say. If you can't study social justice, you'll miss half the message, hoping for just love. You did an excellent job with telling that story. But even the white guy, it's like you were so minus. We're gonna give all of y'all minuses. You don't get to have your privilege for a minute. So it's a minus. You know, if that's what you're coming looking for, you got a minus. And it was amazing to see privilege didn't last in this movie. And it's kind of like going to a black college. You're from where? You're from Harvard, but you're on Howard's campus. Why are you here? Is there a reason for this moment? I love that in the moment too. So, how'd you feel when you really got to address social ills, and then knowing that there was probably another half hour to tell of this story, you had to stop?
Oh
What did
yeah.
that feel like? That your creativity, and I'm sure there was more dialogue. There was a scene, and I'm sitting there saying, "Are we getting really love too? You know, is there we need really love too?" Because it's completely really love, and I'm not clearly. It didn't feel like, I wasn't lost. I didn't feel cheated. Like I
Yeah.
didn't get my money's worth. But I was like, it's a lot of unfinished business here.
No, I mean, wait. Yes. What was the first part of the question? Like, yes, there's a lot of, oh, how does it feel to have had to stop? That's just a part of the process. I mean, I've gotten used to it at this point. It always hurts, you want to do, but I think when you're working in certain mediums, you're like, oh, this is a film, it's got to stop. You want to make more, maybe it's going to be a really low television show. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I think that, for the medium, that was what it was. And also, I feel like if you look at all the films I made, whether it was Burning Sands or Juanita or Really Love, there weren't any white people in any of those movies. And I think that that's a statement that I've been making and will continue to make. That we have a world and a life into ourselves. Our problems are not contingent upon you. They're sometimes caused by you, but sometimes we create our own stuff and we have our own things and we have our own lives and we have our own experiences that aren't dictated by what white people want. And I just really feel like it's really important. All these films have been indie films, right? And so how they get out, and because that's not something that a bunch of white dollars are going to pay to see. But they've all done well because I think we resonate with that. And I'm really proud for that to be a part of that canon, where I can say like every movie that we make makes a statement, like you said, because when we center ourselves in our lives as we do every day, it's not a secret. I center myself in my life. But when in our art, that's not always the case. And so I think it's really important that we continue to do that.
Well, great producing job. I felt like the body of work was phenomenal. Like every ounce, every moment, and because I am an artist and publisher, media guy, I just want to thank you for telling so much truth, of Black truth, that has never made it to film, that I know is hard to pay for. Like those are conversations that's hard to pay for in the film business. They're not quite ready. They're never ready on this Black side. That they're not gonna get to save us. Like, you can't save me. It's gonna be, and I love that. So we got to an end, and I'm like, I know she had about another 3 to 10 to 30 minutes, but she got us to a place that I could say I felt like real love was in the room. So thanks so much for all that you continue to give, Miss Jones. You're doing a great job. I can't wait till I have a script so you can coach me and mentor me through the process. But for this baby that you have birthed, we need to all say thank you again for giving a wonderful gift to our culture forever now, and really love. This is Munson Steve with Star Studio and Miss, the producer, but phenomenal director, phenomenal creative, for all of what you need to know, someone to be studied and followed, Miss Melissa Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us at Star Studio.
Yeah, I'm happy to have been here. I'll be back.